Happy birthday, Toontown! Welcome to the first official Toontown Team live stream. I'm joined here by 3 Toontown Team members: Adam, known as Sheriff Bonkers; Maya, known as Slate Blue Rabbit; and Cam, known as Technicolor. So can each of you introduce yourselves real quick?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'll go by Sheriff Bonkers in game, or Adam on Discord. And I'm a moderation lead for the Toontown team.
Maya?
I am Maya. I am mainly known by my 2 names, Slate Blue Rabbit. I am one of the art leads on Toontown Rewritten, and I'm also a texture artist.
And Cam? Uh-oh. Cam
Hi
is
everybody,
with us.
I'm Cam. I'm a marketing assistant for Toontown Rewritten, and I'm known as Anna-san in-game and Technicolor around Toontown.
All right, so those are our streamers here with us, and we've also got a bunch of tunes in-game right now. So if you go almost anywhere in Toontown, you'll see tons of staff members with their blue icons on. Now, if you can see at the bottom of the screen here, if you send us your questions with hashtag ToontownLive, then we'll be answering them during this stream. And if you follow us on Twitter, you also know that right before this stream started, we were asking for some jokes. This is kind of a test run for ToonFest, so I figured I need to get my stand-up comedy in, right? So, first joke comes from Ugly Corny, who says, "Nobody believed me when I told them I could chop down a tree with just by looking at it, but I saw it with my own eyes." Right? Salty Popcorn says, "CEO's math. 2 + 2 = 4. Peanut Butterson says, "What do you say if a gag misses?" I guess the joke went over his head. And Trending Hobbit says, "Why did the spider cross the road? To get her to the new website." All right. Poppy Cheesy Corn says, "What do you call cheese that isn't yours?" Nacho cheese, a classic. And Alex Turner says, "I better go see Minnie. My pianos are out of tune." The McMuffin says, "I was going to write a joke about going to download stock from Toontown Central, but I forgot the punchline." And Smirky says, "Did you hear about the semicolon that broke the law? He was given 2 constructive sentences." All right, that's all the jokes that we've got, but in the future for live streams, keep an eye on our Twitter account because we will always be asking for shout-outs at the beginning of the stream. Now, like I said, make sure to start sending your questions in right now, and throughout this entire hour-long stream, we're going to be answering them for you. Maya is our art director, Adam is a moderation lead, and Cam is a marketing assistant, in case you didn't hear. So if you have any questions relating to marketing, community, art, moderation, or anything like that, feel free to tweet them and we'll be selecting certain ones to answer during this stream. Of course, I'm Joey, as many of you have already spammed in our chat. I am the community manager for Toontown and the host for the stream today. So, let's go ahead and throw up some of the gameplay that we have. Oh, maybe some technical difficulties. We're working to get our streams back up, but until then, make sure to keep sending in your questions. Okay. Give us just a second, guys, and we'll get those up. Oh, okay, so our first question is coming from AVR and 6. And he says, "Why not add a skip button for dancing after battles?" That's an interesting one, because we actually had a skip button in Toontown Online that Disney added later in the game. And that might be what you're referring to. It was actually a conscious choice to not add it to Toontown Rewritten, to remove it essentially, because we feel like it wasn't really a great change that Toontown made. One of the things that's really awesome about Toontown is the teamwork aspect of it. And so when you're dancing at the end of a battle and whatnot, you get to see everyone's accomplishments at the end. And if you're dancing through a battle and suddenly 2 of your teammates run away, then it doesn't really give you that same aspect of teamwork. So we ended up removing the skip button. There's possibility that we may see it again in the future. For example, we've talked about adding it for like the end of a boss battle. If the entire team votes to skip the dancing, then that's a possibility. But we don't really want people just running off away from their teammates at the end of a battle, even though it would save a little bit of time. Another question is from Joel the Parrot, and this is something I think we all could answer, Adam, Maya, and Cam. They say, what's your biggest hindrance in developing TTR? And that's a really good question. We certainly have a lot of hindrances. I think the biggest ones are, obviously, we are volunteer staff. We don't get any money from Toontown Rewritten. We all have jobs, school, usually both, going on in addition to the work we do for Toontown Rewritten, but obviously we're trying to run this game as if we're full-time developers. It's really interesting to see the different challenges that we face, being an online team as well, not getting to meet in person, and there's definitely drawbacks from that. But I think that we've done a lot of work to enhance communication between team members, to make sure we have enough people to do the work. And even though our schedules can be crazy, I think that we do a good job of managing it between departments and whatnot. But starting with Adam, I don't know, what do you think, Adam, is one of the biggest hindrances in developing Toontown Rewritten?
In general, I guess it sort of goes back on to what you said with just time. You know, we're all busy people and volunteers, and so adding new things can be really tough. And I guess I think just, people, I think that's the benefit of having being a volunteer team, is that, there's not really a limit to how many people we can have on our team. So I guess it's just a matter of finding the right talent and getting the right people to help us make Toontown a great game and keep expanding.
All right. Yeah, for sure. Maya, what about you?
I think for me, the main thing is time zones, probably, because I live in the other side of the world for most of you. So I often find myself staying all night and things like that. So I think this is the biggest barrier from my side.
Cam, what do you think? What's some of the biggest hindrances?
I think it definitely goes back to what you said as well. I know I have a full-time job and I'm in school right now, so being able to juggle everything all at once can be difficult sometimes, but I think it's really a matter of perspective, just keeping in mind really how much you love the game and how rewarding it is to work on it. So just finding that balance and making it all work out is probably my biggest hindrance.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. Before we move on to the next question, just want to confirm that the stream is not supposed to be me on camera the whole time. I promise you don't have to just keep looking at me. We're still working on getting our live streams back up between the other players, and it looks like we just got one. So here you can see, over here, you can see Slate Blue Rabbit, aka Maya. If anyone wants to join her in game, looks like she's in Daisy Gardens. And Maya, could you say which district you're in? Maya, are you still in the call?
Oh, I forgot I muted myself. I'm in Song Falls.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Oh, could you say that district one more time? Zoink Falls?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and it looks like Adam is up too, Sheriff Bonkers. So, Adam, could you say which district you're in? Looks like you're in Toontown Central.
Yeah, I'm in Fizzlefield.
All right. Fizzlefield, Toontown Central is where another one of our staff members are. And looks like we might be close to getting that third one up. But until then, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. So this is coming from Hodges1. He says, where's all the content that you promised players in the past, such as Toontown Retextured, Toontown Rerigged, and translating the Tooniverse? And yeah, that's a good question. I know that you guys are very eager about content. I know that there's stuff we've talked about in the past that has never made it to the main game. Part of that is the unfortunate nature of game design. They say, there's a saying in game design that for every feature that gets talked about, there's 2 other features getting cut just because there's so much work that goes into it that is really hard to understand. I said I don't want to just make excuses for us, because there's, you have to remember that when we started Toontown Rewritten, we were basically a bunch of teenagers who had no idea what we were doing. We never ran a game before. We had never reverse engineered an online game before. We never developed content before. We've never had a live stream before, 5 years later. And you see how that's turning out. It's a learning experience. So one of the things that I'd say is part of that is learning from past mistakes. You know, we start working on one thing and then we realize, well, maybe this isn't the best thing to work on right now. And then there's other parts of it where, you know, we start working on one project and realize that the community wants something else. So, for example, we could be working on translating the Tooniverse, which is still an active project in the back of our minds that we want to get to one day, but we know that players aren't really wanting that right now as much as they're wanting stuff like the Executive Office Tower, field offices, the Silly Meter, the other kind of exciting stuff that we've been prioritizing. So I'd say that that content isn't gone. Retextured is, you know, we still have all of the work that we did for that. Re-rigged is actually a project that's going to be releasing very, very soon. That is one that's been an active development ever since we made that blog post about it, the Backstage post. And translating the Tooniverse is something that we'll be talking about sooner or later. So just keep an eye out for those things, but keep an even closer eye out for the other content that we're working on in the meantime, some of which we'll be talking about during this stream. Did any of the other guys here have anything to say about retextured, re-rigged, or translating the Tooniverse? Maya, did you have anything to say about that?
Yes, sorry, I need to get used to not to click on the unmute button, or else I'm just talking to myself. Yeah, it's the reason we put it on hold is pretty much because we realized it's taken so long that in order to finish that with the current amount of staff members we have, it's just gonna take a really long time that will probably be better spent on other types of bigger content that will change the game in a better way. So we put it on hold, but but it's not like we're not ever going to come back to it. This is still something that we keep and we'll probably get back to, possibly when we have more staff members. So if you guys want to apply as text or artists, details are on our website.
Yeah, and another project, kind of part of Toontown Retextured, that you guys have been talking a lot about this stream is our HD music project. You know, we've had a lot of high definition music that you've heard playing in the background, and that's actually why I just walked off stage to let our tech guy know that it was still going. But that's something that has had a lot of work put into it as well, and it's not just like decompressed, or I think it's compressed MIDIs like a lot of people do. They take the original MIDI files from Toontown Online and just, you know, add a slightly higher quality instrument to it. Those are actually using, you know, higher quality sound fonts and whatnot, and really engineered to make it sound like an authentically better version of the original rather than just a remix of it, I suppose. So that's something that you could see in the future. It's not really on our short list of active projects, but like Maya said, you know, we're always looking for team members. We're looking for people to help us with those like side projects. So if you're interested, go to toontownrewritten.com/apply, and we have all sorts of positions there.
Hey guys, I'm not sure if you can hear us. I think you do. So Joey has a problem with his mic at the moment. That's why his sound isn't picking up very well. But because you can still hear us, we will be talking to you in the meantime until he fixes that. So one topic we can talk about for now is I'll let Cam talk about the staff member icons and cast members, and what exactly is that? Because that's something people ask us about a lot.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk about that for just a second. So community is something that's so important to us, and it's something we really want to focus and emphasize on with cast members. So our goal is to create really cool interactions and lasting memories between cast members and the players. We really want to immerse you guys into Toontown Rewritten's story. So we really want it to come alive when you play. We want you to actively feel like you're a part of the world that you're playing in as you play. And we talked about it a little bit in the community content and cast members blog post, but we've got a bunch of awesome possible ideas we're working with for cast members, such as maybe mini games or rewards beyond just the Resistance Ranger suit and more. And you may even get the chance to see some of these characters, like some of your favorite NPC characters in game.
Do you want to explain the differences between each type of icon?
Sure. So the blue badge we have up right now is our staff badge, and this is the icon that goes on our main toon. So these are not toons that have been altered in any ways. These are just toons we've worked up. These are toons we had before we became staff members in most cases. This is just a way that you guys can see who we are and have the chance to interact with us as people within the game. And then Toon Troopers are toons that work for Flippy in the game. They work for the Toon Council, so their role is to maintain things in game, like fishing, trolley, racing, all of those things.
Hi guys, so we think we figured out what's causing the problem. Bear with us a moment and we should be able to get back to normal.
Hey guys, so we're experimenting. It turns out as we're testing this, it seems like when we switch to certain views on our stream layout, it's messing up. So let's see when John just switched here if it's going to keep the audio. I'm just going to keep talking and let me know in the chat if it's working, and if so, we'll continue this stream. So far so good. All right. So sorry about that again. It seems like we're we're learning a lot from our first streaming experience. We will extend this stream a little bit since we promised you an hour-long stream. We're going to keep to that. But for now, let's go ahead and get a question from the McMuffin TTR. So the McMuffin TTR says, will we ever see bigger accessory trunks so we can hold all the accessories? That's definitely an idea. It's kind of like one of the reasons that these limits exist. It's not entirely for gameplay reasons. It's also for, programming reasons. Because when you have a bunch of friends on your friends list, or when you have a bunch of accessories in your trunk, or anything, you're saving this giant list of accessories to the database, which can bog down the game a bit. The more that you have, like the longer these lists get, and the more people who have these really long lists, then it starts bogging down the game a little bit. Not a whole lot, but it's still something we have to manage. So, we would have to perform tests like that to make sure that we can actually increase the accessory trunk size without having an impact on the game. Keeping in mind, there's always, a couple thousand people playing Toontown, so we have to imagine, like, what if all of those couple thousand people had full accessory trunks? But assuming that works out, then it's possible we could see accessory trunk increases in the future. Is the audio out?
Audio's good.
Okay. Let's see. So this is a question from ANF Off, and he says, will a new playground or COG headquarters ever be added in Toontown Rewritten? Yeah, we hope so. Obviously you guys have seen the cloud on the page in the sticker book, and although the cloud isn't one of our active projects right now, we do obviously plan to put something there in the future. So we're going to be talking about what that could be. We've got lots of ideas, and sooner than later, I think that you'll definitely see some new areas to visit in Toontown. Maya, do you want to talk about any future possibility for new playgrounds or COG headquarters?
I think you pretty much said what could be said. We do have some ideas for future things, but I don't think it's anything that we are ready to reveal right now.
Yep, so keep your eyes peeled for that. You know, we can talk a lot about our future plans and whatnot, but we don't like putting all of them out there because, you know, obviously that leads to threads of, you know, things that we haven't finished, and we have a really big focus right now on going back and finishing all the things that we've promised in the past. You know, there's certain things that we've decided to scrap, like the new Toon Hall interior is not something that we're working on anymore. Things like the texture have been put on hold, but other things like, you know, translating the Tooniverse or Toontown Re-rigged, field offices, silly meter, those are all things that we're trying to fulfill the promises of the past and release before we start talking about brand new things after that. But we're always going to be adding to Toontown. We're always looking for new things to put in it. It takes a lot of time, but I think that you're going to be really satisfied when you see some of the exciting stuff that we've been working on. So, we've got another question from sorry, the audio went away for a second, but it's back now, it seems like. So, with the storyline, I don't know if you heard what I was saying. We planned it out like beginning, middle, and end. So you guys have already seen the beginning of the storyline, which happened during Alpha. You guys know that Toontown Rewritten takes place in the past. You know that Dr. Surly is this scientist from Loopy Labs who possibly was once Gyro Gearloose before rewriting himself. You guys know about the Fissiontons, Dr. Fissionton and his counterpart, Dr. Fissionton. And you guys have kind of seen how the storyline is evolving, which is something that just didn't happen in Disney's game. So we add that into the game because it's kind of an optional part for people who like those kind of things to explore without taking away from the main gameplay elements that, you know, everyone loves. You know, it's obviously an optional thing. You don't have to know the storyline to play Toontown, but those of you who like storyline have probably enjoyed what we've been doing so far. So right now we're somewhere in the middle of that storyline. There are plans of what is supposed to happen at the end of it. Now that is years down the road because we have all sorts of plot points mapped out that we want to hit. Right now you've seen a lot of stuff from Samantha Spade, who's going to start becoming a more prominent character in the Toontown universe. But yeah, we've really planned out a big story for Toontown, and it does have an end, which doesn't necessarily mean the end of the game, just the end of this particular story. Now, speaking on Toontown Rewritten's end goal as a game, we really, really want Toontown to come back officially, and that's the bottom line. You know, when we started Toontown Rewritten, our goal has always been like, what can we do to keep this game alive? Not like, how can we take control of the game? That's not what we're thinking about. We're not thinking about like, how can we make money off of the game? Because really, we pour our money into it. We don't accept any sort of donations. Our goal has always been, you know, what can we do to make Toontown last the longest? And our end goal for that is we want to see Toontown revived by Disney. We want to pay for Toontown because we're already paying for Toontown, at least on the Toontown Rewritten team. I know not all of you are willing to pay for Toontown, but we are. We really want to see an official revival from Disney or Shell Games or whoever it may be, because that's what's really going to make Toontown last. You know, Toontown is a game that just turned 15 years old. Most games hardly last 3 years while still having an active player base. So it's incredible. And, you know, we're trying to keep Toontown actively updated to retain that player base and bring more people on. And it's really exciting that we're still able to do that. But it's not sustainable in the long run because Toontown's going to keep getting older. The gameplay mechanics are going to get, you know, overridden by other exciting games that other publishers are creating that, you know, experiment with new modern techniques that are more fun than Toontown's older ones that were designed for 2003. So really the only way to make Toontown last in the long run is we need to get Disney to revive it. And in the meantime, you know, however many years it takes, we're happy to keep running Toontown Rewritten. We're going to keep updating it, providing content. So that's not signaling the end of TTR anytime soon, but you know, we're really looking to, you know, we've talked to developers from Toontown Online. We obviously keep up with Shell Games with, you know, Jesse and Sean who come to Toonfest. They're great guys. We love talking to them about Toontown. And we're really looking to figure out how to make a sustainable future for it. So we don't know what that looks like, but that's the goal that we want to hit. And it's a goal you can help us with, because if you send emails or letters or fan art or anything to Disney, Shell Games, you know, any of the important people involved with Toontown, then they'll see that there's a player base out here who wants it revived and they're willing to spend money to make it happen. And you know, that's really what we want to see as Toontown Rewritten's end goal. We want to make the Toontown community survive as long as possible because it's such a great community. Adam, do you have anything that you want to talk about with the future of Toontown Rewritten, maybe either generally or in regards to moderation?
I think in terms of moderation, I guess I can say a little bit. I think our goal is to constantly improve in the moderation department and try to be as fair to all the players as possible, while also maintaining, you know, the security of the game and safety and making sure it's fun for everybody, because it's meant to be a family game. And while I know a lot of the player base has gotten older with Toontown, there are still people that play that, you know, either want to play it for that, you know, the essence of Toontown, which is family friendly. So yeah, I think we're just constantly evolving and trying to do better, and you know, always taking feedback from the community. And so yeah, I think we're just excited to move forward with Toontown.
Yeah, for sure. Maya, do you have anything you want to say about the future of Toontown?
I think you pretty much covered up everything I could answer to that question. So.
Okay. And Cam, what about you? Do you want to talk about any of our future public relations goals for Toontown?
I think from the PR side, our goal is just to really make it as immersive and really just as fun for you guys as possible. In the meantime, obviously, you covered most of the bit about wanting Disney to revive it, but in the meantime, just keeping it a fun thing to do. In the meantime, we want to immerse you guys in the story. We want you guys to be involved on social media. We want to use your suggestions, really all of those things we really appreciate. So if you have them, we'd love to hear them, because while we are waiting for Disney, we're always looking to make our game better.
Yeah, definitely. And I see some of you guys in the chat have been talking about, you know, the point I said about paying for Toontown. I just want to clarify, we are not going to charge for Toontown Rewritten, ever. Toontown Rewritten will always be free to play. And we're also, you know, what I said about wanting to pay Disney for Toontown, I understand that Toontown is better free, and I don't think if Toontown was revived, it would ever come back in the same model, you know, $10 a month, because that's just not a model that works in modern day game industry. I think we'd likely see Toontown completely free to play, and just have cosmetic things that you could buy to help support the game, because there's, you know, tons of people, hundreds of people who email us, send us letters, talk to us in person at Toonfest, who tell us, you know, how can we donate? How can we support Toontown? Like, this is a great game and we want to pay the developers for making it. But we don't accept any of that. We can't accept donations, and we don't really want to, because we know it's our responsibility to keep Toontown running, both in the content we create, the paying for the servers and whatnot, our time, which we don't get paid for. So I think a Toontown future revival would likely be a free-to-play model with cosmetic items that you could buy just for the sake of supporting the game, rather than blocking off access to certain content. But I don't know. I guess a discussion point for the chat would be, what do you want to see out of a Toontown revival, and what would make it worth it to you to pay for? And also, one more thing to clarify, it wouldn't be Toontown as we know it today. I'm talking about brand new, completely redesigned Toontown for modern day gaming. All right, let's bring on another question. That one took a while. So this one comes from Jake with many A's. He says, can we know a bit about what's in store with the animated street objects and how they may tie in with the new silly teams? That's a great question. Many of you have seen our new announcement this week about the silly meter, and I'm glad to see so many people excited across the community about that. Again, that's actually not the biggest project that we're working on right now, so I was actually kind of surprised to see just how excited people were about the silly meter, knowing what's in store down the line. But in terms of the animated street props, they're still going to be here. We are changing them from their Toontown online form, so they aren't going to take up 30 seconds of your street battle. Your street battles will still move just as swiftly. They're not going to be obnoxiously loud like they were before, so those are just some small kind of quality of life tweaks that we're making. And they're also not always going to be alive. When the silly meter has low silliness, the street props will be static. And then as the silliness gets higher and higher, those street props will slowly begin to move more and more. So it's a really cool visual to see just how much silliness is going into Toontown right now. And silliness, even though it's a word that is just kind of a gameplay element, it really translates to community activity. Like, how much community activity is in Toontown right now? If there's not much, the street props will be kind of frozen and whatnot. But then when there's a lot of community activity and a lot of people playing and earning silly points and whatnot, you'll see them move more and more, and they'll start helping out with your battles to give you a buff for throw and squirt and tune-up, just your street battles. We've also talked about certain tweaks we could make, like I think one idea we talked about was making it so when the silly meter is really high, not max, but just really high, and the street props are dancing around and whatnot, when you're close to a street prop, so basically like on the sidewalk of a street, we've talked about making it so your tune runs faster. And that would just be a cool little thing, just a small feature, but it helps you get to where you're going faster. If you're doing tune tasks, then if you make the silly meter really high, then you'll be able to get to your tune task locations faster, because you'll have increased movement speed when you're on the sidewalks near a street prop. That's just one idea we've toyed with. It's not necessarily one that's confirmed to be going into the game, but let us know what you think, and it might happen. So hopefully that answers your question about the street props. As of right now, they don't really tie into silly teams, but I don't know, maybe we'll have some kind of silly team about giving those street props greater functionality and gameplay benefit. This question comes from Scalimer, who says, say you don't pick a silly team, could we still contribute silly points so that the meter can be maxed anyways? That's a great question, and the answer is yes. If you aren't on a silly team, if you never choose which silly team you're going to join, then you'll still be increasing the silly meter, because the silly meter points, like the global silly meter, is just completely detached from the silly teams. The silly teams are just kind of like putting your points towards a certain reward that you want. But if you never choose one, then it'll just keep adding to the normal silly meter. Let's see. This one is from TTSA 051, and they say, what has been the most difficult part of development so far? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's been a lot of years that we've been working on Toontown. While I think about that, starting with Cam, what do you think is the most difficult part of working on Toontown Rewritten so far?
I personally think the most difficult part of working on Toontown Rewritten right now is that we have so many ideas and we have so many concepts we want to use and things we want to bring into the game, and prioritizing what needs to come when based on community feedback and what we feel is best and how we want the storyline to progress, making sure everything is done in proper order and done well, and making sure that everything gets done with high quality. That can definitely take a lot of time, and time is definitely a setback for development. So I think that's the most difficult part of developing Toontown Rewritten.
Yeah, good answer. Maya, what about you? What do you think is the hardest part of working on Toontown Rewritten?
I can only speak from an artist's point of view. We have a lot of stages during the art process, from when we have the idea to when we have the final product that can actually go in game. I think for art, the hardest stage is probably the technical art, because it's the one thing that I don't think players get to understand just how complicated it is. But there are so many specific things you have to do in order to make sure that a model will work well in game and not lag, and the animation will work in the best way, and the textures will be in the right size and all of that. So this is something mainly, we have 3 technical artists at the team in the moment. And I would say it's probably the stage that takes us the longest, and it's the hardest thing to figure out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our technical artists do a lot of work to make sure that our texture artists have an easy time texturing models, that the models work in game, that there aren't collision bugs. Really, the whole art team puts in a lot of effort to collaborate on these things that, you wouldn't think about being super collaborative things, like creating a texture sounds like it's something that one person could do, but really it takes an army to create a texture like that, when you have to create the model, make sure the UV map looks right, make sure it's easy for the artist to texture and brings out the quality of it the best. So we definitely do a lot of work there. Adam, what about you? What's the hardest part of Toontown development?
Well, not being a developer, I can really only speak to, from a moderation standpoint. Mm-hmm. But I would say the toughest thing from a moderation standpoint is just making sure that, like I said earlier, making sure that our policies are fair, making sure that we're keeping bad people out of the game, but making sure the game is fun for everybody, and just constantly iterating. Myself and the other moderation lead are constantly looking at player feedback and reevaluating how we can change things and make things better for players and the community as a whole. And so that's probably the toughest part, is finding that balance. And I think we're getting there. We've definitely improved over the last year or two. And I think we're just going to keep improving, but it's been tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that question. Before we move on to the next one, there's one thing I want to address, because I've been watching the chat and I see a lot of people talking about it, and that's WASD support. And yeah, we've confirmed it in the past, but WASD support is one of the things that we're absolutely working on. It's a lot of people say, like, well, why don't you just add a toggle, like turn on WASD? And yeah, we could do that, but I think one of the things that is both it's kind of our own undoing, but also I think that it adds a lot to the game that makes us stand out, is that we never like to just settle for the easiest solution. So we are adding WASD support into Toontown Rewritten. We're adding it very soon as well. In fact, we've already created all of the artwork for it. Programming has already started on it. And we have the support in there. It's just a matter of linking, the artwork and programming together, making sure everything lines up right, doing testing and whatnot. So it's something that you'll see very soon in Toontown Rewritten, not just WSD support, but key binding support. So that means you can toggle any key. That's especially helpful for Mac users who often have to press the FN key before pressing any other thing, like jumping. So you can bind that to other keys on your keyboard rather than just hitting the button that says turn on WASD. So we're going to be implementing a whole new settings screen that would be on the Make a Tune panel, which you'll be seeing hopefully very soon in Toontown Rewritten's future. So keep an eye out for that. It's one of the features that we know a lot of people, especially Twitch players and whatnot, are very much looking forward to. So we're making it a priority to release it. Let's see. So another question comes from MeepMeep189, and they said, should Disney revive Toontown, what will happen to TTR? Yeah, I'm not sure. It's something that we can't really say until it happens and starts happening. Like I said earlier, we are in constant communication with Toontown Online developers, Shell Games. They know us. They love what we're doing for Toontown. They're really glad to see their work still being played by thousands of players. So we hope that in a future revival of Toontown we would be involved. There's no promises on that. There won't be any hard feelings if we're not, but I've said in the past, in the event that Toontown ever is officially revived, most likely Toontown Rewritten would close. But that's not because we want to close the game or anything, but it's because we want to support this new Toontown revival. Because you have to remember that a Toontown revival doesn't mean the current game that you see on this screen. It wouldn't be that. It would be brand new graphics, new gameplay, all sorts of new stuff is what a Toontown revival would mean. Stuff that we can't even imagine right now, let alone begin to implement. So I'd say that we hope to be involved with the Toontown revival. We very much want to be, but we just have to wait and see. Let's see. A question from BladeWolf112 says, will we ever be able to change difficulty on bosses like easy, medium, or hard? Great question. We've talked about this a lot over the past few years because really it's changing boss difficulty from the programming side isn't necessarily hard to do. I mean, you can increase the cog levels and whatnot. But if we ever did that, I think we would want to implement brand new elements. Like imagine if you're in a VP battle, but cogs were coming at you from the side while you're throwing the pies, like in Doomsday, or stuff like that. So we've talked about it. It's not one of our currently active projects, but it's something that I think we do want to do one day, to be able to do a harder version of the VP for a greater reward and more laugh points and whatnot, and a harder version of the CFO and CJ and so on. So hopefully one day you'll see harder versions of bosses in Toontown. And as for easier versions of bosses, in the past we've had our Storm Cellbot event where the VP was made easier for a month, and we had this big event where the whole community got involved and tried to take down the VP as much as possible. There are all sorts of toon tasks, and it's very likely that you'll see a new type of Storm Cellbot event in the future. Let's see. So from Madison Rice 111, they say, will there be any new tunes in the future for Toontown Rewritten? Maya, do you want to talk about what it's like to implement a new tune species and whether or not we could see more in the future?
Yeah, so right now, I don't think we will add any more new species at the near future because the process of doing that is really long. And another thing we keep in mind is that if Toontown ever will come back, we want to make sure that there will be some way to recreate your tunes from TDR in whatever new version of Toontown is happening. So it's very important to keep species that we think would actually be there on the new version, something that we will be able to recreate so that you won't lose your tune. So this is one thing to keep in mind. And other than that, I think adding new species is like, there is a whole big process behind that. It's more than just we decide on a new animal and we just model it and throw it in game and that's it. There is a very long process behind it. And because we've already done that, I think right now, in the near future, we will probably want to focus on things that we didn't already do, like new content or things that will affect gameplay better, instead of doing things that we've already done in the past, just to keep the players more interested.
Yeah, like Maya said, it's not really something we're thinking about doing right now. It takes a lot to put in a new toon species. There's always the possibility in the future, but at least for now, we're just going to be focusing on new gameplay content to actually add more to Toontown's, core gameplay. Let's see. Mean Man 315906661 says, "Is there anything interesting that you can talk about that's been scrapped from the game?" Man, I'm trying to think. Obviously, we have a lot of scrap stuff. Do you guys have anything off the top of your head that you think is really interesting that we've scrapped?
Maybe that one game we were going to do for Toonfest, back when we thought things are much easier to do than they really are. We had a plan to make a little mini game for Toonfest that I'm not entirely sure how we named it. It was something started with C, that's I know for sure. We had a little plan, we even had a little prototype, we made some prototype graphics for it and things like that.
Yeah,
but eventually I think you could even see some of the prototype in the face files at some point. But eventually we decided that because it takes so much effort, it's probably not worth it for such a small thing from a gameplay point of view, like putting all of that effort just for a temporary event mini game that will probably not be the best use of our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the Cog Crusher course that I see a few people have said in the chat. And yeah, we were really excited about that project. It's a shame it got scrapped, but like Maya said, it just wasn't a valuable use of our time to create a limited time event, or rather a limited time new part of gameplay that would only be bound to Toonfest. And basically the idea of the Cog Crusher course was the Toons set up this giant, almost like bouncy house that resembled a cog building. And it was made out of all sorts of makeshift stuff, like cog parts from buildings, and they just kind of nailed them all together to make this course where you had to run through it and defeat these dummy cogs as quickly as you could. And there would be 2 Toons on one side and then 2 Toons on another, and you would be competing against each other to get to the end the fastest. But yeah, like Maya said, sadly it just didn't work out. We did really like the idea and we liked the art style of it, so it's possible we could see something like that in the future in the form of a party game or something, but it just wasn't worth it for the limited time content that it would be. Cam or Adam, do you guys have a favorite scrapped feature that we could talk about?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to talk while also doing this VP, so hopefully I don't sound crazy, but
it's intense.
Yeah, I know. I think and I hope I don't get myself in trouble by saying this, but I thought one of the coolest projects that we were working on was Retextured. I thought that we did a preview at OMGCon 2016, I think, of the bird. And I thought it looked really, really beautiful, and I thought it was really cool to see the game updated in that way. So that was one of my favorite projects that we don't have time to work on at the moment. But yeah, I'm secretly vying for that one to come back soon.
Yeah, I love Retextured as well, and the stuff that we had created for it, we released that video of the Berg Retextured, and it's just really cool to see that whole area in a more modern appearance. So hopefully one day, if we get enough texture artists, I'm talking to you guys, come apply to our team, we'll be able to continue that project. If you don't know texture art, learn it, and then come apply to our team. Cam, did you have anything you want to talk about with scrapped projects?
I was always a big fan of translating the Tooniverse. I just think that's such a cool concept to have some sort of AI that translates what you say in real time into other languages as it's set. And I think that's such a cool way to incorporate multiple countries and all sorts of different people who are interested in playing the game. And so I think that was my favorite one that was scrapped. Or at least is not in focus.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, so that's some of the scrapped content that we can talk about. I wish I could think of more, but I can't off the top of my head. But it's always possible in the future you might see some backstage posts that just talk about what that content could have been and release the work that we did do for it. But luckily, I feel like it's been a while since we scrapped a project. So for a good while, we've been working really hard on the upcoming stuff, like the Silly Meter and our secret project that we haven't really talked about yet. So this comes from I'm Bioshock 3D, and he says, any chance of adding boarding group icons similar to staff icons to differentiate people in the area? And that's a really good idea. We love small, like, quality of life improvements like that. You know, a lot of people don't realize just how much we've added to Toontown that has made it better in small ways. Like if you look on the stream down here, that is that laugh meter above Adam's head. That is something that was just added to the game by us. That didn't exist in Toontown Online, and I think that's a small tweak that people really like because they can see who has the lowest laugh in their boss battle. It's something you don't really notice a whole lot as you're playing, but subconsciously, you know, it directly affects the way you're playing the game. Yeah, so I don't know, do any of you guys have more answers to that question?
I say it's a good idea and we should make it happen.
Yeah. So you might have just gotten something added to Toontown Rewritten. All right, let's see. This is a question from Being DJ2. They said, do you plan on adding new mini games to the trolleys? We actually last year at one point were talking about adding a new mini game to the trolley because it would be a fun little project. It wouldn't take too much time. But we opted more so to work on the Silly Meter instead and the other projects that we've got going on. So there's been talk of it in the past, but it's not something we're working on right now. Let's see. Mr. Mark Painttoon says, are there plans for an official bug tracker or a way to report problems? That would be really beneficial to us, for sure. Right now, you can report problems through sending in an email, or really if you post on it, almost any community website, chances are we'll see it. But we actually have been experimenting with an internal bug tracker more recently. I mean, not that we haven't had one in the past, but this is just a new one that we've been working with. So it's possible we may open that up to the public in the future to report bugs, which would probably have to be approved. You know, a staff member would have to approve to make sure the bug exists and it's not just some troll. And maybe upvote bugs to say like which one is most important to me to get fixed. But in the meantime, we're actually improving our internal bug review process so that we can figure out, you know, which bugs are affecting our players the most. And we actually have very soon, like possibly this week maybe, don't hold me to that, but we're going to be releasing a big bug fix update that focuses on features like when you get to the end of a cog facility. Right now there's a bug where if you disconnect at the end of a cog facility, then the rest of your teammates get more merits, which isn't really fair to the person who has to disconnect. So we fixed that bug. We have some other cool battle enhancements going in, as well as a few small quality of life features like we were just talking about. So be on the lookout for that update. It's coming soon. Let's see. So Stand X Strong says, how can those of us not going to Toonfest celebrate at home? And that's a great question. Like we said in our Saving the Best for Toonfest Backstage post this week, we're actually doing a lot to try and get people more involved from home. You know, just like this live stream, you know, you guys are able to be involved with it and ask us questions and put in the chat and in game as well. So we're going to be experimenting with other ways to get people involved from, their household instead of having to be at Toonfest to experience everything. So that means more live streams. We'll probably take some questions from the audience during our Q&A, as well as just making sure that our Snapchat and Instagram and all of our social media is more updated. Then there may even be some events going on in game that weekend. So keep your eyes peeled for news. But if you can go to Toonfest, it would be really great to see everyone there. It's a great event, and it's really like the best time of the year to celebrate Toontown. So, and like I said, we are going to be announcing some new things there. So be on the lookout for that. Let's see, so we're going to keep going for probably another 10 minutes just to make up for the time that we lost for the technical difficulties at the beginning of the stream, and we're going to wrap things up. So make sure to send any final questions in, and anything you want answered by the end of the stream, feel free to post it with hashtag Toontown Live. And thanks for bearing with us so far. Sorry for all the technical difficulties earlier, but we're definitely going to be doing more live streams in the future and getting community members involved, possibly. So it's going to be a really great experience to have this new way to interact with the community. I hope that you guys have enjoyed so far. So until then, let's see, we have a question from Laver Dev Love, who says, are you planning any never before seen stuff for TTR? Like nothing we've ever heard of? Yeah, we are. Not just planning, but we've been working on it. So make what you will of that, but be on the lookout for never before seen content that's being added to Toontown. A common misconception is people like to repeat our quote and say, Toontown Rewritten is never going to add anything new into the game because they're just trying to be like Toontown Online. And that's not true. We always are working on new stuff and new ideas, and this summer you're going to see the biggest project that we've ever worked on announced at Toonfest. But when we say that we want to be like Toontown Online, we're not saying we only want to be like Toontown Online and never update it and like never add anything that Toontown Online didn't add. Rather, we're saying, other Toontown servers have gone out and made Toontown into something that it's not. They've changed the gameplay in ways that we don't think lines up with the Toontown that we know and love. So when we say we're trying to be like Toontown Online, what we're meaning is we're pretending that Toontown Online never closed. Like, if they weren't shut down in 2013 and Toontown was still going today, what would it look like? What would Disney have added in new updates? And that's what we tried to achieve with Toontown Rewritten. We want to add updates that really represent the original core gameplay elements that all of us have fallen in love with because we're still here today. If we really think that if those core elements of the gameplay are so strong that they've made a community that has lasted for 15 years and going, then there's nothing wrong with them. They deserve to still be in the game, and we want to complement those features and make them better rather than trying to restructure them into something that isn't really what Toontown sought out to be. So that's what we mean when we're saying we're trying to follow Toontown Online's footsteps. So we have a question from DarkMeta1485, who says, how is TTR going to go about embracing content and events from the community, like on r/Toontown Rewritten, community events, Discord, etc.? So Cam, do you want to talk about how we're going to be planning to embrace community content and events in the future?
Yeah, I'd love to. So this is something we're really focusing on right now. Right now, there's a big push for community involvement. So a lot of the things we want to do, I touched on cast members earlier, but some other things we're looking at doing is more events in game. We're looking at having contests, more social media involvement, all of those things, both in and out of the game. We'd really like to involve you guys more. And I think this is where community suggestions come in to play really big, as we love to see what you guys are looking for. We love to see what makes the game enjoyable for you, what you would want to be involved in. So anything and everything we can do to make the game more involved and make it more interactive and make you guys have more opportunities to play with each other and make teamwork more rewarding, and all of those things we're really focusing on right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that in addition to the things you said, we were talking to streamers and content creators, and don't be offended if you haven't heard from us yet, because we are probably going to be contacting you. We're really trying to hear out from community members. What do you guys want to see? And you if you want to spam the chat right now with what you want to see, have at it. Just be respectful, of course. But we really want to hear from the Toontown community, which makes this game so strong. How can we better represent you? And we've been doing that with the content we're putting out, like the Silly Meter ARG that we did in April, and stuff like the Silly Meter as well, which is just a very community-centered event where the whole community has to come together to max the Silly Meter, get the Silly Meter to the top. And there's also little elements of competition in there with the Silly teams. But with a lot of our features, we're trying to embrace community interaction and bring new experiences to Toontown that will create new friendships, provide more transparency with team members, and just make it a better game all around. So thanks for that question. See, we have about 5 minutes left of the stream. So this comes from that trumpet guy who says, will you consider adding community challenge events, like defeating X amount of cogs and rewards? It can be cosmetics or jelly beans. I'm not really sure what the last part of that question was, but in terms of community challenges, that's something that I've definitely thought a lot about. At one point, I really wanted to do community toon tasks. So you have your general toon tasks that are just for you, but then there's also a community toon task that could be anything from defeat 1,000 cogs collectively as a community. Everyone tries to defeat a certain amount of cogs within a certain time frame for a community-wide reward. Or other stuff could be silly things like get 50 toons standing around the flower in Daisy Gardens, and that could come up with some kind of reward. So yeah, I think that going hand in hand with that last question, like we talked about with community events and features, it would be really great to see that kind of stuff in the game, and we're putting an emphasis on that in the future. So GamerSmurf64 says, what can we expect in the in-game Toonfest this year? I'm trying to think what I'm allowed to talk about from that. We haven't really talked much about the in-game Toonfest since we've been so focused on the out-of-game Toonfest. Toonfest won't be changing a whole lot this year because we've spent the last few years putting a lot of emphasis on it, and this year we have other things that we're going to be working on around that time period. But there are a few things that we just haven't quite gotten to with Toonfest yet that you might very well see this year. There's talk of Riggy Marole having his own activity. Everyone loves him, and maybe some other small mini games that pop up there. So I'd say for the in-game Toonfest, you can definitely expect to see a lot of stuff like this live stream. We'll be doing a lot of stream-related things around then, I'd say, and a lot of cast member interaction. So lots of Toon Troopers, Resistance Rangers, brand new experiences with them in the game. But you might very well see some new minigames added to the Toonfest area as well, and new ways to earn Toonfest tokens, maybe even new Toonfest prizes. So we'll have to see. We're getting there. Let's get past the out-of-game Toonfest first. Let's see, Maya or Cam, Maya, Cam, or Adam, did you guys have anything to say about the in-game Toonfest? Maybe anything you're excited for?
Definitely, I think streams, like you mentioned, would be awesome. The more we can do things like this, the more involvement there is out of the game, and I think it's a really cool way to showcase everything we're doing with Toonfest. So streams, I think, would be really, really awesome if we can make this more of a regular thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll echo what Cam said, and I agree that I'm sort of excited for the really big community aspect we're putting on everything, and just kind of putting a big focus on involving community and things that we're doing. So yeah, I think streams would be really fun, and just making Toonfest in game also a community event. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Maya, did you have anything to say about Toonfest?
I agree on the involving the community out of game more. This is something that doesn't require much development time that is being taken projects, but it's still very fun and given the big celebration feeling. And as for the in-game, I would say maybe we could someday finish some of our scrapped Toonfest features, because we do have a few of those, but it all depends on how much free time we will have by then.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. Yep, like I said, we're working on a lot of things right now. And like I also mentioned earlier, we are wanting to fulfill all of our promises of the past before moving on to new stuff. So that may affect Toonfest development. You know, it depends how much time we have at the time, whether or not we'll get to those new mini games, but you can definitely expect to see more community interaction, streams, cast members, and all sorts of stuff going on there. Let's see, so could we get another question on there? Let's see. I'm not sorry, 18 says, have you been working on the cloud that you mentioned about 3 years ago? If so, do you have any information or hints about it? Man, I have gotten so many questions about this cloud throughout the years. And it's my own fault, because I was the one who said, you know, we should put a cloud there because we want to put something there one day. And the reason we did that is because there's kind of this, if you played Toontown Online in the early days, there's this ongoing mystery that there were always clouds on the map. Like, it just kind of represented this feeling of expansion. Like, Toontown isn't over yet, and we are going to add more. You know, there was each of the COG headquarters got revealed slowly, and then when Boss Bot headquarters was gone, there wasn't a cloud anymore. And I feel like the community, especially because, you know, Disney stopped releasing updates kind of after Boss Bot headquarters, we were left with this feeling of like, is that it? Are they not going to add anything more to Toontown? Because they uncovered all the clouds and they haven't said anything more. Obviously, they did add parties after that, and the field offices. So they did add more, but it was still kind of like we didn't know if we would ever get a new playground or a new COG headquarters, and obviously we didn't by the end of the game. But with Toontown Rewritten, we know that we want to do that one day. So there's a cloud there to represent the future, a future area that will be in the game. It's not one of our active projects right now because we have other things that I personally think are equally exciting that are going to be popping up into Toontown. But after these things are over, I think it's very likely that we'll be seeing soon what may be under the cloud. Let's see. Can we get another question? Just a few more before the end of the stream. So this one comes from Prado Jr. 56, who says, has the chairman ever been a thought in the TTR team? And yeah, like I talked about with the story, you know, there's a question about story earlier, talking about the beginning, middle, and end of our story. The chairman is involved with that. He exists in the Toontown universe. You know, it's very likely that we'll be seeing more of him in the future, maybe in relation to that cloud, maybe in relation to the executive office tower, who knows? But he exists, and he's out there in Toontown plotting his next move. And for our last question, I just do want to confirm that we are adding Toontown Battle Royale, like you guys have been saying in the chat. You know, you guessed it. We are adding Fortnite into Toontown. I'm completely kidding. But just to get that out of the way. All right. I think that's about all the questions we're going to go for. But if you feel like you haven't been satisfied by this stream, right now, just to end it off, I want you guys to say one word in the chat. Choose any word about something you want us to answer or address that we haven't yet with this stream. And I'll try and answer the word that pops up the most. So it's going to take a few seconds for you guys to get here, but I'll be watching the chat to see what word seems to pop up the most that you want us to address. Let's see. Oh man, this is moving faster than I expected. Playground, Toontown Corporate Clash. Let's see. Transparency. Executive Office Tower. Man. Let's see. I guess I'll answer the Toontown Corporate Clash because I see that popping up a lot, but I guess I'm not sure what the question is. Toontown Corporate Clash is another server that's coming. Brings you different types of, like I talked about earlier, they're bringing a different experience to Toontown. They're not associated with the Toontown Rewritten team, but we wish them the best of luck with their endeavors. And we're happy to see the Toontown community surviving and growing in new ways. Let's see, one of the other things that I saw was the Executive Office Tower, which I didn't address during this, so I'll talk about that. The Executive Office Tower is not one of our currently active projects, but one that's in our queue to probably be worked on next. So that is going to be bringing a brand new boss battle to Toontown that you'll be seeing in the future. But you won't have to wait until that's released to see some new content from the Cogs. All right, guys. Maya, Adam, Cam, do you guys have any last things to say before we go ahead and wrap up this stream?
I just want to thank everybody who's listening here. We really appreciate you guys coming out, answering questions. It means a lot to us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll echo that sentiment. I really appreciate everyone coming out, playing with us, having fun in game, and everyone being here on stream asking questions. And I also want to give a shout out to everyone backstage working. Cam and Quentin put a lot of effort into the stream, so thank you guys, and just thank everyone who's been helping with the stream for the past hour and a half or so, making sure it goes smoothly. And again, thank you guys in the community for being here and bearing with us through technical difficulties.
I want to say I had a lot of fun today, not just answering the questions, but also playing with players in the game. I would like you guys after the stream to come and tell us how did it go, so that we can improve for the next time. Did you like this type of events? Did you want to see things like that in the future? Did it answer your expectations and things like that? We are actually following the feedback and taking it to heart. And other than that, I just want to say, come to Toonfest. Come to the convention because I want to meet you guys.
Yes. Like Maya said, please come to Toonfest. We are really excited for Toonfest. If you can't come, watch it on the stream. It's going to be a really great event, and we have tons of awesome things planned, both in the activities that we're doing there and the stuff that we're releasing. And I know that a sneak peek was promised during this stream, and I see a lot of people mentioning it in the chat. So I don't have a visual peek here for you, but I'll tell you, I'll compromise and say I'm going to say one of the things that we're adding in our next update is a visual indicator for boss battles. Like we talked about, there's quality of life improvements. So if you have your sound effects off, you often know that it's difficult to time your VP when the VP's jumping and whatnot. So now there's going to be an exclamation mark that appears above your head when the VP jumps and when the CJ jumps. Just a small little thing to improve, but definitely not the most exciting part of that update. However, since we don't have that sneak peek here for you, I will be posting it on Twitter shortly after this stream is over of what that visual indicator looks like. So keep your eyes peeled for that update. Please come to Toonfest, and thank you guys so much for this stream today. Again, we're sorry for the technical difficulties, but we really hope that you enjoyed it. Please give us feedback on Reddit, MMO Central, any of the community areas. Feel free to message us or post on our social media pages. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what we can do better. We'll be looking at this stream, and I promise the next one is going to be even better, hopefully without technical difficulties that we can fix. Yeah, so we're looking forward to see you at Toonfest, and thanks for celebrating Toontown's 15th birthday with us. We'll see you next time.